Chapter 38, Angela's Adventures. Angela's friendship with Dwayne had developed into something deeper than just friendship, and had blossomed into wedding plans. Angela and Dwayne worked together cleaning and passing out newspapers to earn extra money. They soon convinced Brian and Marcus to join them. The boys would do the route on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Angela and Dwayne would do it on the other days. They would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and pass papers for 5 hours. They would get back just in time for school. Sometimes Nick would go along with the boys and bounce along in the back trying to get some sleep. After a few trying months of losing much sleep and dealing with car problems, the driving newspaper route was abandoned. Years later, most of the children had walking newspaper routes. On any given morning, 7 Foxes and a few Fairy Christian school teachers could be seen walking the dark streets of Reading before 5 a.m. in the morning. Mom and Dad were always relieved when the children arrived back from the cold, dark streets of Reading. God kept us safe. Most of the children agree that they would not want their children to pass newspapers before dawn like they once did. One fall morning, Angela had just woken up shortly after 3 o'clock to clean a commercial business before it opened when she saw a man on their front porch wrapped in a blanket. She ran back upstairs and bounded into Mom and Dad's room. "Dad, wake up!" She shook Dad until he woke up. He groggily opened his eyes, trying to catch a glimpse of the time on his alarm clock. "What's wrong? It's still early in the morning." Angela whispered in a shaky voice, "There's a man on our porch and I don't know who he is." Dad sat up straight. All thoughts of sleep were now gone. He hurried to the boys' rooms and woke them up. Dad looked through the window and gasped, "That's Keith. He's the man who was causing trouble at a friend's house last night. I had a conversation with him there. He left in a rage. He is known to cause trouble in the community. It makes me nervous to see him out there. You never know what he's up to. He's a little scary to deal with because he is a karate black belt." Brian and Marcus soon joined Dad at the window. "I wonder how he got here and what he wants." Dad and the boys quietly formed a plan and put it into action. Dad slowly opened the door as the boys crouched at the top of the steps, praying for Dad's safety, but ready to spring into action to help him if needed. "Keith, do you need help?" By now, Dad had reached the man's side. The man nodded his head. Dad invited him in and closed the door behind him so the cold air would not creep into the house. "How did you get here?" Keith pulled his blanket closer around him. "After I ran away last night, I was driving wildly and hit a tree. The cops picked me up and wondered where I wanted to go. I told them to take me to Pastor Fox's house." Dad and Keith talked for another hour, and the boys returned to their beds. Eventually, Brian heard Dad and Keith coming up the steps. He heard his door creak open, and Dad whispered to Keith, "There's an extra bed in here you can use for the night. You can sleep on the top bunk." The family did not sleep very restfully that night, and Keith stayed with them for a few days. Dad and Mom would give anybody in a hard spot a bed, no matter how dangerous the situation. They trusted God with their safety. Angela and Dwayne were married on March 25, 1989. The wedding was very beautiful. The reception would always be remembered as the reception where the food came out a little slow. Mom sighed when she thought about the fact that she had just parted with another daughter who had been a great help around the home. Grandma continued to visit every 4 months, making life exciting. Amy was growing, and thankfully Krista was good at trying to keep her happy. Angela and Dwayne bought a nice row house 3 blocks away. Dwayne was handy and gifted at figuring out how to make things work. Mom was happy to have him nearby to call for a repair or for help with Grandma.